No? I'm worried. Oh, is it Newsy? Oh no, that's fine. Go on. Did I not do something?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Spark to Sports, the last one. Hope you enjoyed the ride so far. And as always, please make sure to have your microphone on mute and your camera off. Feel free to ask any questions at any point during this session. You can do so by pressing the button, show conversation, and type up your question in the dedicated section. Quick reminder, in case if you have not been able to attend some of the talks, you can access all of them via the UCC Sport website or UCC Sport YouTube channel. Today, it's a privilege to welcome today's guest, Kieran McGeeney. I could go on and on about Kieran, an incredible athlete, fascinating coach, and inspiring person. Kieran captained the Armagh County to the 2002 All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. He played international rules, won countless of awards. One of them is the Footballer of the Year in 2002. He managed the Kildare senior football team from 2007 until 2013 and became the manager of his native Armagh in 2015. Kieran, welcome to the webinar. Just to start it up a little bit, I would like to get a sense of your life and who you are. More specifically, there's always people and events that shapes who we are. And if you pull back the curtains of your life, what are the people and events that tend to pop up and come to your mind a little bit?
Yeah, well, that's a big question to start with. Probably when you go back in terms of sport, I suppose we all go back to our underage things. When introduced to anything, I suppose our introduction always can lay the foundation to how we look at that particular sport or business or whatever it is. And for me, it was a coach, Charlie Grant. Actually, I'm still very friendly with his sons. Now, Charlie has passed away a couple of years ago, but Charlie was the first person who introduced me to Gaelic football. And he wouldn't have been a tactician or a technical expert. He just wanted you to go out and have a good time. So all our training sessions, whether it was going to matches or coming from them, he was always very positive, and just have great memories of that underage football with my own club back in Armagh. So he probably would have been one of the first ones, and then the other coaches at Armagh as well. Joe McNulty, Peter McDonald, people like that. Then there's a fellow called Desi Ryan that I met at Queen's, another person whose philosophy probably influenced me a great deal, like in terms of how he was able to deal with people. Mm-hmm. Not really always able to copy these type of people, but they definitely made an impression. In terms of then you can go right through all my coaches. I think every coach that I've been very lucky in my life in terms of my sport. Jim McCarry, Joe Kieran, Paul Grimley, Brian McAlinden. Really top class coaches. People have made a big influence in my life. So all of them. I suppose looking at sport, it's very topical at the minute, but probably the only person that I ever really looked at that I admired in sport was Michael Jordan. I suppose now at the Last Dance, everybody's sort of refining that particular athlete, but at the time, because Armagh weren't doing well, I spent a few summers in Chicago playing football over there. I was around the 95, 96 of the period, and Michael Jordan was like a god or an icon, so I got very interested in him and Phil Jackson, and read a lot of Phil Jackson's books. His first one, Sacred Hoops, where he talks about giving books, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Don Millman, to a lot of his athletes. So that sent me off on a journey in terms of the psychology of sport, and just having I'm not a sports psychologist, or don't pretend to be, but I have a real interest in that side of the sport. So I suppose I'm like everybody else. Everybody that comes into your life has an impact in some way, and I've been very lucky that most people I've been involved in have had a very positive impact on what I've done.
So how many years have you been coaching football? So bear in mind, I'm French. I didn't grow up around GA. So how many years have you been coaching altogether football, Gaelic football?
coaching, I went straight from playing to coaching, so it's what's that, 2008 now, about 12, 13 years. And before that, I was involved playing. I started playing senior county football when I was 17, just in the 6th year at school.
Okay.
And before that, I had 3 years at minor, so I've probably been involved in county football, I don't know, about 35 years.
So over 35 years, well, when did you get a sense? When did you notice that your approach to challenges was different?
I don't know if I ever really thought it was different, but I have an older brother, Patrick, and I think when you grow up with siblings, especially one that who's bigger and stronger and better than you, it always pushes you to a certain degree. So you're always used to being able to, I suppose, scrap for something. Like we used to play football a lot out in the back gardens, and I was never good enough to beat them. But that thing that was always beyond you, like probably set the tone for the way I approached most things in life. Like people tell me I can't win, can't do something, so that's exactly why I want to do it. So, both from a physical point of view, always coming across something that like was bigger, better, or stronger than me, I always felt that you could overcome that. And then from a mental point of view, not knowing if you ever could or would beat something and stretching yourself to do that. So I suppose in a lot of ways, like my back garden laid the foundations for the way I approach sport and things in life in general. That like you're going to get knocked down, you're going to get hit, you're going to get knocked back. So you just have to get up, dust yourself down, and give it back a wee bit harder. And I suppose most people wouldn't know, but there's things that sort of like impact you. Like poetry wouldn't be really my main thing, but that's why that poem Invictus talks about, like, where the bludgeons of chance, like, you have rinsed or cried aloud. That type of, I think, philosophy is something that you need. Like, listen, bad things happen. Just get up and get on with it. Like at the end of the day, you're basically the person steering the ship, so get up and get on with it.
I was researching a little bit last night for this interview, and I came across one of your presentations that I believe it was 6 months ago to us. I don't know if it was a school, there was definitely a crowd there. It was called Embrace Your Awareness. And I really like the title, and I was listening to the conversation, to your presentation, and I was like, this is really refreshing, because it talked about, it is not only the awareness, but what you have that define you as a person. And if you cultivate that and refuse to embrace normality, what the world wants you to become, but you really want to become the person that you want to be, things will happen. And I find that refreshing because, nowadays you have the pressure of social media. The kids have to try to conform to a certain kind of identity, the way they looks like and stuff like that. And my question would be, embrace that philosophy, how much of this embrace awareness, learn to be uncomfortable, how much of this guides your coaching philosophy in your life?
Yeah, I would like to think it guides it a fair bit. I know everybody's different, but unfortunately, like when you're coming through school, one thing that you're trying to do is to make everybody like you, and it's something that like we all suffer from, especially in the modern world where social media is a huge part of our life. Now, I don't do much social media. I tell everybody I get enough abuse in the papers on a Monday without trying to fish for some more, like at the weekends. So, but there's this want to take the edge of who you are, and even as parents, like I have young kids at the minute, like my oldest boy is 11 and the girls are 5 and the wee fella's 3, but you're always telling them to be careful and to watch out, and you're nearly taking their individualism off them, and we have to try and be careful we don't do that. Like, there has to be some sort of conformity, like in terms of rules and regulations in any society, but there's things about you that is unique and different, and unfortunately you put too much emphasis on those 30 people you sit in the classroom with when you're going through school, or like these few people in it's such a small cross-section of society, and little do you realise that there's other people out there that actually would love you for who you actually are and not make fun of you or have a go at you, like, and would try to get you to become more like you are. It's clear there's obviously things within the game or within coaching that you have to get them to do, but at the same time you have to come to realise that, like, what makes you unique is that special blend that makes a team strong. Like sometimes it takes a while to get used to that. Like I used to get sort of frustrated when people weren't like me when I was playing, like if they weren't taking it as serious. But you learn over time that if there was 15 Kieran McGeeneys on the team, they would win very little. The same way as if there was 15 Kieran Donaghy's on the team, or if there was 15 Peter Canavans, like, you need that. I suppose it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You need those edges to you so to be able to fit in together. And that's what you're trying to get. Like yes, the discipline and training hard and working hard are key principles of succeeding in life. But that doesn't mean they have to take those edges off you. Those things make you unique. In fact, like, to me, they're the things that you should be sharpening, because what makes you unique, that's your 9 out of 10 zone that I would call it. And when you have that, that means that that's what you need to focus on. And it's labor and focusing on your strengths, not your weaknesses. Work on your weaknesses, but spend most of your time on your strengths. That's what you're picked. That's what makes you different. That's why you're there in the first place.
You mentioned the team, and diversity in the team will make the team great. I don't know if you follow the NFL, but the team in Seattle, the Seahawks, their head coach, Pete Carroll, always tell the players and staff that everything counts. Everything that you do every single day, the food that you eat, the food that you don't eat, the people that you hang out with, the way you dress, the people the music that you listen to, everything counts to not only define you as a person, but your character as well. Because for him, according to him, everything is not so much about winning, but about performing, going through life at the best. My question would be, firstly, define his coaching philosophy as a relationship-based coaching. How would you define your coaching philosophy style?
I suppose it's always very hard to answer that truthfully, because you'll have an interpretation of how you're perceived by your players or the people you coach, and they might have a completely different philosophy how you approach that. So I very much agree with what he said in terms of, I believe when you turn up, you're going to have an impact. That's going to be a negative. You're going to either add to something or you're going to take away from it. Regardless of what you think, you're never going to have, like, it's never going to be the same once you turn up to training. You're going to have an impact one way or the other. Same with the game. So it's up to you what way you want to turn up to that, whether you're going to add to it or whether you're going to take away to it. And that provides you, like, that's your responsibility. So I suppose the one thing that I'm always trying to get across to people is that it's not management that wins games, it's players. It's not mentors that makes you successful. It's people across the white line. Like it's the person who turns up every day that determines what happens. And suppose my biggest philosophy would be, like, is trying to accept personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that is key. But I suppose to do that, you have to build a relationship. Like, I've often talked to players, like when they see some coaches shouting or roaring, and we're very sort of like aware of, like, the likes of Alex Ferguson's hairdryer treatment. But what I've tried to explain to people who probably don't understand that is that Alex Ferguson built a relationship up with those people before that. They're looking at the final point of the journey, that 3-second rant. But what they don't see is a 2 or 3 year relationship built up by doing things, making sure, taking care of that particular person. So that person knows when he's shouting or roaring. Not that I'm saying that's what you should do, but
I think I lost your sound there for a second. I don't know if you're on mute.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
So it's that journey. Like, I know it's very cliche to say it, but it's the process, the relationship that you build up with that person until that point. If they know that you have their best interests at heart, they will take most things from you, because they know you're not doing it to make them worse. You're doing it to make them better, regardless of what that is. Sometimes you can be better at doing it, but regardless of if their interpretation, if their visual concept of you is that you're there to make them better, then they'll be able to take most things from you. And that's what that relationship is about. It's not that final point that some people see in a changing room or at a match, but it's the relationship that will be built up for the 2 or 3 years before they make that one
And you mentioned, so you're talking about that process of taking, the athletes through that process of making them better. There's an Israeli historian, Yuval Noah Harari, who mentioned clarity is power. And so how do you teach your players when they are in a complex situation on the pitch to have that moment of clarity, to own that space between the space?
It's a difficult one because there's so much chatter in their lives. Mm-hmm. You're doing county football, there's somebody from the club in them, there could be somebody from the university in the rear, there could be their parents in the rear, there could be so many people are talking to them about what they should not and should not do. So getting them to understand the personal responsibility in that moment of time to be able to take and make a decision and own it is quite a difficult thing to go across, because people can say, well, that's what you get for hanging around with that fellow McGeeney, he's idiot, or that's what you're doing in county football, you're wasting your time, why are you trying to do it? And we see it all the time now, like when people are talking, even in this COVID sort of time that we're living in, people telling they should be stopped training. As if, like, what do you call it, like, training is a bad thing. Trying to master a skill is something wrong. Like, don't go out there and get healthy and fit, like, and have a structure to your life. Don't go out there and try and master a skill. Take 4 months off, like, sit on the couch, watch TV. So to try and get them to understand that, like, and to take that personal responsibility and to master anything or to be good at something takes time and effort and discipline, like, a whole lot of other things. So it's a difficult process. Mm-hmm. I suppose that's the joy of coaching. When you see that happen, you see that switch finally switched on, and you see an athlete grow, when you see them taking on, nothing to do with you as a coach, but to do with them as a human being, to be able to accept responsibility and grow and push themselves to the limits of what they can do. That to me is the ultimate feeling as a coach. That to me just goes, that fella's going to go somewhere. That person starts to understand now that he's the captain of the ship.
You talked a little bit about, you mentioning that feeling as a coach. If you could teach us the way that, what it feels of, what are you experiencing as a coach when you're on the sideline? What is going on inside you when you're there coaching, not only in training, but in the game?
That probably wouldn't be my strongest point on the sideline at times. I'm an emotional person. And I've often wished and prayed that the GAA would probably have a separate area for managers like they do in other sports, so you can remove yourself from the emotion of the game. I keep having to remind myself that I'm not a player anymore, and to have that point of clarity myself. Like, I've got better at it over the years, and so. But I suppose the one thing that you're trying to do in the sideline is let go. That's decisions that you have to try and drop your ego and to let those fellas take control for that moment. Like, any team that I've ever played for that has done anything decent or well, the one thing they were good at was taking responsibility on the pitch. Yes, you were led by good managers and great coaches, but part of their greatness was the fact that when you cross the white line, they let you grow into those leaders that you should be, to make decisions in real time and not wait to half time or until something came from the sideline. So I suppose what I am and what I would like to be on the sideline might be different things. That's what I think you should be as a coach.
Yeah, you mentioned about being able to let go. A minute ago, I asked you about how do you teach athletes to have that moment of clarity. When you go through moments, on the sideline, that's when your emotion takes over your thought process. What do you do to regain clarity without realizing? And when you realize, look, I'm maybe losing the rag here. What's your framework to go back to that moment of clarity so you can help the team?
I suppose it always goes back to why you're there in the first place. And if something you're doing is taken away from something they're doing, then you're not doing your job. So I've been very lucky. I think I have good people around me, and over the years, one of the coaches in the team, Julie Davis, she's a strength and conditioning coach. I would use Julie to remind me, because sometimes people remind that a wee bit like I might bite it then too. But people who know me well enough know that the last thing I want to do is to harm something the players are doing. So just to remind me like I'll be hurting them. And now Jim McCarry works on the sideline with me, and Paddy McKeever and John Toll. They've all got the authority to remind me very quickly if I start to do something that interferes with what the players are doing on the pitch. First of all, it's a bad example, but more than that, that's what do you call it? That I'm taking away something that from them, and so basically, carry my ego and shut the hell up.
So I'd like to talk. I would like to explore a little bit a process. When you think about a process and outcomes, outcome would be winning or losing a game, a championship. You certainly have been through different outcomes. You've been at the top. You had some low moments. What can you teach people on how to deal with the low outcome, on how to move forward and get back to living instead of staying in that negative space, low space? How can you teach the people on how to get out of that space?
This area can be quite confusing for a lot of athletes because when we set goals, they have to be something we can ultimately control. So there's certain outcomes that you can't, like winning All Ireland finals and stuff like that there, because there's so many different things that come into it. But you can have visions and dreams, and you want to encourage people to have those. But I suppose what happens with a lot of athletes, they spend so many time preparing for success, which they have to do. So when success comes, sometimes it feels like an anticlimax to them because they're prepared for this mentally, they're ready for it and all of that there, and then they're looking for the next high instead of celebrating the moment. And likewise, because they're prepared for success, if it doesn't come, they feel lower than they'd ever think they could feel because mentally they haven't prepared for this. So we would try and put as much emphasis as we can on the process that are involved in trying to achieve those outcomes.
Sorry, I think you're on mute again. Oh,
it's like a wind. I think
it's the wind thing, yeah.
I'll take a wind. But so what we would try and get them to understand is to focus on the process that's involved for those outcomes and to be able to concentrate on that, because you can be victorious and you can prepare for when they do work and when they don't work. And when they don't work in the processes and the feedback from the process is one that is telling you that it's going in the wrong direction, you can change and adapt and learn from that. And same when it's going in a positive direction. So you want them to work for the outcomes, but again, the emphasis is completely on the process. And sometimes even when I hear this coming out of my own voice, sometimes it sounds so cliche, but I try to explain to everybody that's what life is about. Like, it's cliches, and the thing about it is like that sometimes they sound too simple, and that's why people don't do them. They're looking for the magic fix. They're looking for the pill. They're looking for the shortcut. Whereas life is about the 1%ers. It's about the marginal gains done consistently over a daily basis. If you're looking to be good at something, if you're looking to master something, if you're looking to get success, to me, it's all about habits.
Mm-hmm.
Success comes in.
No, I absolutely agree with you. Sometimes you can see nowadays in our society, everything's about shortcuts and what can you hack to get to there, without when the whole process, the whole journey, it's all about learning through trials. And that 1%, even if you're looking in, for example, in cycling, the Sky team, what they used to do, even to look at the level of pillow, what was the best pillow for their cyclists, so they could optimize the sleep that will have an impact on the performance of the player. I would like to bring back a little bit to you, and as a coach, as a person, what is your heart really set on? Like, ultimately, my question would be, how do you want people to remember you?
I also have a philosophy of training that, train like you want to play and play like you want to be remembered. So it's hard to say. I suppose the ultimate thing that I have in team sports is it's a bit of a, I suppose, it sounds a wee bit strange, but the ultimate in team sport to me is to make the person beside you look like an all-star. And once you have that running through your team, very, very strong. It's something that I genuinely believe. So suppose if I could be remembered for anything, it would be like learning people to understand that although you're going to always meet some asses in your life, you're going to meet some people who are going to go against it. But the more you give, it's usually the more you get. And that goes for team sports and sports as well. Like even in individual sports, like I'm very much into jiu-jitsu now. And I love the training element of it. Like, even though it's an individual sport, like I see that on the mats as well. Like the people who learn the fastest are the ones who give more. They're not trying to hold their moves, or they're not trying to sort of wants to learn a particular move that's hard to protect against. They don't hold it to themselves. They teach the younger player or the younger white belts, the blue belts, because they know if they come at them at a better way, they'll get better. So I suppose as a coach, I'd love to think that like most players that have remember that the more you give, the more you get.
Can I ask you about jiu-jitsu? It's quite, I mean, you know, at the moment of MMA and all that, there's quite a lot of people taking that for different reasons. But why are you so interested into jiu-jitsu? What do you find in practicing jiu-jitsu? Is it, I believe that you mentioned a quote saying that, you know, this moment of clarity when you're getting choked or your arm's about to get broken, which I agree with that, you know, there's definitely. But what do you find so attractive in jiu-jitsu?
It's a bit like meditation for me when you're on the mat and somebody's trying to. Jiu-jitsu means the gentle art, but it's only gentle on you, not your opponent, when you're doing it, because it's all leverage of physics. So suppose at that moment, like when you're fighting for your life, there's such bills, troubles at home, newspapers, everything's gone. Like there's just you on the mat, like, and I love that feeling. Mm-hmm. I've been very lucky to be a coach of John Cap from SBG and Seb Torres up in Uri as well. Like, and you know, their philosophy has always really, really captured me. Like, and I didn't do it on purpose. I actually got involved in BJJ because when I took over Kildare, I wanted to do something different with them when they were off season, just something like that didn't fight enjoyable and a wee bit sort of reputation of being a wee bit soft. So I thought, like, you know, so why not do this here? And I found out very quickly that like, it was a reputation that they didn't deserve. But when I went to see John about doing it, I heard it was the ultimate form of martial arts, and like, I'd been fit and strong, and I came across John, like, really want to do any personal sessions, so I convinced him eventually to do it, like, and per session, like, it's just a thing that he does, like underhooks and swimming for it. I really didn't want to show that I could be broken, but basically I was thrown around by somebody 30 kilos, like, when he was taking it easy on me. I know he sometimes tells the story that I was able to last him for a long. But he doesn't realise. I remember going home after that and I went back up to Manchester and I went for a coffee, a Starbucks coffee, and I remember taking the coffee and I put it down in front of me. And I looked at it for about an hour and a half. I didn't even have the energy to lift it. I fell in love with the philosophy behind it. Hardly in individuals. There were Dory type of training, that like the way of coaching, like, you know, the first day you start, you're thrown in, like, you learn a move, the next thing you're thrown in to see can you can compete on that particular move.
Sorry, the sound dropped a little. Yeah, that's better.
I love that whole idea that getting immediate feedback in everything you do. So when you could be rolling with a black belt when you're white belt, they give you. I suppose it's harder to do in Gaelic football because, you know, you have 30 individual athletes running around and stuff like that. But I still think you can get immediate feedback on a particular time if you can get around the pitch, like when you're training, is a great way for something to be able to stick in a person's mind. Like, you know, even professional that decision. Jiu-jitsu.
One of the question that came in, you mentioned that of the successful teams that you have been involved with, it was the players that took ownership, leadership roles on the pitch. in any successful groups, you will have certain players where that comes naturally to them. But how do you develop, promote, facilitate these leadership roles within the group as a whole?
Yeah, good question, and something that at the beginning when you first managed and stuff like that, like trying to get this reach every player is quite difficult. So you have a leadership group, but asking people to take part like in leadership groups without giving them skills to be leaders is like throwing somebody into the water who doesn't know how to swim and how to get to the side. So I've learned that the hard way. So I've tried over the time to sort of make that part of my coaching philosophy, getting people to be involved as they mature and showing them the different aspects that they can bring to it through their own leadership, through their own voice, and trying to sort of get that. It's a journey. Sometimes people forget that, like in history, whether you look at a Richie McCaw or a Rourke, leaders say that this, that, and some are from a younger age. But you'll see somewhere along the line that that's been a journey, whether it's in school or club, whatever. So it's trying to facilitate the journey for players. Experiences as others, giving them a chance. I know like we have younger players coming through and they're really keen to get more involved in that type of stuff. And we're trying to give them that responsibility. Like I know other coaches and managers think like managers are there to manage and players just want to be coached and that's it. Like I disagree, but that's just a personal thing. Like it depends. You might get a team that like to be led. Me, I want to be involved with a team that I want to follow.
No, as you mentioned, it's very much part of the coaching philosophy, and Pete Carroll mentioned that as well. He likes to be involved with the players. He likes to create an environment where the player can grow and learn from that process. It's not about his view is not only a coach, but a participant in that process, in that growing environment. My last question, because we're nearly running out of time, is. Have you read any interesting books over the past couple of months that you could recommend to people?
Probably the one that's interested me most, probably be an unusual out there for people. Like it was called 10% Human. It's about the microbiome. And just about the impact that antibiotics has in our life, and it's quite relevant for now because we're in a world of keeping everything very, very clean, but how bacteria has such a big influence on our life. So I really loved it, and in terms of the food we eat, and even the obesity epidemic and stuff. It was one of the most interesting books I've read. In terms of other books for people, I wasn't a great reader when I was young, but I consume books now that are.
That's good.
One or two. Most of the ones that that you get a lot out of. I'm reading a new one at the minute called Limitless by Jim Quick. It's quite good. Give and Take by Adam Grant was another good one that I read recently. So I could go into, if you're going on your books, I could give you a list. There's something in all of these books for everybody. And it's funny, when you start to diversify, you're reading outside of those self-help and sport books and autobiography, but there's wee nuggets in each book. And as long as you're open to them, you can find it. And sometimes it's that wee nugget that just helps, because as a coach, you struggle sometimes with some players. And I look back, and some of the most difficult players I've had, I've often written myself as either my greatest failure or my greatest success, that they've been able to put up with me or I've been able to put up with them. Then it's finally realised that, whether you use the Enneagram or whatever sort of personality thing that you use to be able to sort of communicate with them, or even letting go of your own ego and letting another coach being able to take them and change them and direct them. But they're the things that we're looking for as coaches, that ability to be able to, to bring all of our players with us. So I suppose, in terms of books, my thing would be is, always read every book with an open mind, because 95% of it could be blah, blah, blah. But
there's sorry, just cut off. There's you mentioned about letting go of the ego. There's a really great book about Ryan Holiday. Ego is the enemy, and stillness is the key. Those two books are absolutely excellent. So I don't know if you read them, if you know Ryan Holiday's.
I've read all of Ryan's books. I started off with Trust Me, I'm a Liar, his marketing book. Very good one. You know, like in terms of everybody's a salesman, I just haven't got his new one. Stillness is the key, so yeah, I like his stuff, so I do. And I think he was his mentor was Robert Greene, who wrote Power and Mastery and stuff like that. There's some great stuff in his books as well. So yeah, as you can see, I've turned into a bit of a geek and that sort of stuff.
No, it's right up my avenue. So no, it's great. It's music to my ear. Kieran, thank you so much. It was absolutely incredible conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks also for taking the time, and have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.